Hello everyone, this is Michelle, the writer and director of Detroit Evolution and Detroit Awakening, the movie that came before it. Now, Detroit Awakening is celebrating its 2-year anniversary this month, so I thought I'd take a look back at the script for the film and the director's breakdown that I made for the script before we shot it in February 2019. I like to do this with every script that I shoot. I do some margin notes for every act of motion, every bit of dialogue that a character says, to make sure that everything is consistent and that the character is behaving with proper motivation. This is also really helpful as a prep tool to go into a set and know exactly what I should say to direct every single line of dialogue should an actor struggle with it, instead of having to come up with the words to articulate what I want that line to do on the fly. If you're curious about the Detroit Evolution director's breakdown, I actually did a full 2-hour stream about that back in July of 2020. You can see that in the description in the YouTube version of this if you're curious about that and want to check that out. For now, I'm just going to get started on this Detroit Awakening version. As you know, by watching Detroit Awakening, the film opens with Nine's awakening in the Cyberlife Tower by Marcus and North. There's not a whole lot interesting in the margin notes here because it's pretty boilerplate. We're motivating some dialogue from an AI who doesn't really have a mind of its own or anything. It's mostly just informational. And RK900 himself is not deviant in this scene either until the end, so there's not a whole lot here that isn't obvious. Then we get into some more interesting stuff with this breakdown. Here we have Gavin. Gavin gets introduced, and this is where the margin notes really start to do work, because Gavin likes to say things that are different from what he means a lot of the time, and these are things that need to be noted for anyone who is going to take that role. So RK900 he's a little sarcastic in the beginning. He wants Gavin to follow him to work so they can carry out their joint duty. He knows Gavin responds best to snark. They've been together 3 months at this point, so he's going to lead with sarcasm to make sure that he is listened to. Gavin delivers his own snark to make sure RK900 knows he can't just boss Gavin around, and he's also deflecting the fact that Gavin is the one making them late. Gavin doesn't want to accept responsibility for that, so he just thinks that he's going to throw out some sarcasm and be done with it. But again, RK900 always has the last word. That's something that carried over into Detroit Evolution as well. He always wants to make sure Gavin knows that RK900 is equal in wit. So we get to the crime scene. Chris is too low ranking to give Gavin a super hard time, but he still wants Gavin to know that he's late and wants to get straight to business. He is cold, literally cold outside, and he wants to get back to the office. It was a very cold day. At this point, Chris Miller is still just an officer, so he is outranked by Gavin. So he can be honest with him, but doesn't want to overstep his boundaries. It was fun having him be a detective in Detroit Evolution because being equally ranked to Gavin meant that he could not put up with any of Gavin's shit. They send Nines to investigate the dead body, and in the meantime, Gavin and Chris have this little side conversation. This is one of the first android crimes that Gavin and RK900 get sent to, and that's kind of important to note because the grisliness of the android murder is unique in the reaction that it gives Nines throughout the film. So if they had been doing android crimes for months and months before this, the plot of Detroit Awakening kind of wouldn't make a lot of sense, because you would assume that Nines would have seen dead androids on the scene before this point. So I had to put in a note here and set up in the actual canon of the movie that android crimes is atypical for Gavin and Nines. Typically, they get sent on dead human homicides. So Chris explains that Hank and Connor believe they should be sharing the load, and so this unprecedented introduction to them being in the android crimes department is justified. And Gavin is kind of warning Chris about how things are going to get worse before they get better when it comes to people treating androids with violence. So Chris believes that Gavin is expressing his own bias and wants to correct his partner's bigotry. He sticks up for Nines and Connor, who he both likes, especially when he knows Nines is within earshot of this conversation happening. A couple people commented in the movie that, God, why are they having this conversation right by Nines? Well, Gavin doesn't really necessarily care about hurting Nines' feelings. Again, he he's pretty acerbic. Regardless of whether Nines is an android or a human, he doesn't really care about his feelings. And so they're just having this conversation off to the side. He never got along with Connor because Connor is kind of a polite brown-noser of a character. He's the type of personality that Gavin just doesn't like. This is another justification I have for Gavin not being completely anti-android. We've only actually really seen him interact with 2 androids in the game, one of which was the Attic android who killed Carlos Ortiz, and that was a pretty minor interaction, although Gavin was certainly not nice to that android. But the main target of Gavin's ire was Connor, and I hold that it's because of Connor's personality, that if Connor was a human being, Gavin probably would have been almost as acerbic to Connor, even if he was a person, just because of his personality, just because of what he represents to help Hank, who is a character that Gavin resents because he thinks he doesn't work hard enough and is standing in the way of Gavin's promotion. I think he used to idolize Hank, but in the time since Cole's death and everything that's kind of happened to Hank and that fall from grace that Hank has had, I think Gavin's really frustrated with the fact that Hank has a lot of free passes from Fowler, even though he's not really doing his job as hard as Gavin is trying to. So Gavin doesn't have any love lost between himself and Hank and Connor, so he will probably never talk super highly of them, even into DE. That's why there's never any explanation of Gavin and Connor, Gavin and Hank being friends outside, even in DE, because I just don't feel like that's something that would really happen right now. Maybe later on, once Gavin and Nines are together for a while. But Chris is not letting Gavin get off that easily. He refuses to speak on the android's behalf. He thinks that Gavin and Nines need to work out their own shit and not hide it under false pretenses and other biases and stuff. Nines is kind of hurt by their conversation and would just like to focus on the mission so he doesn't have to think about it too hard. He's giving out his theory, they're seeking info, they're investigating the crime a little bit more. Chris is offering up these ideas for maybe things that they could do to find the next lead. Nines kind of already knows it's a dead end, but he doesn't want to let Chris down too harshly. So here we go. RK-900 stares and imagines an alternate life where he was the deviant hunter as he stares upon the dead android. This is a very important silent motivation, and there's also a very important silent motivation for Gavin. Gavin sees that RK-900 is shaken up and wants to get his friend/partner out of this situation and away from this trauma. Nines is confused because he really wants to finish the mission and his duties and collect as much info as he can. But Gavin presumes he knows what's best for Nines right now, and what is best is to get the hell out of here. He's firmer because he has to, because Nines just never listens to him. Chris realizes what Gavin is trying to do is de-escalate Nines' emotions, and he kind of agrees with him, so he allows them to go. And then Gavin attempts to placate Nines with the fond nickname Tin Can and some semblance of an explanation. RK-900 follows because the other men have given him no choice. This is one of the most important interactions that is sort of a subtext-filled interaction in Detroit Awakening. Gavin realizes that something is bothering Nines, that they've never been to a scene like this before, that Nines has never seen an android dead like this before, that obviously is bothering him, and Gavin assumes, based on things we're about to find out in the next scene, that Nines is not taking this very well, and that maybe Nines needs to be removed from the scene so that he can de-escalate the situation. At this point, Gavin sort of sees him as an acquaintance, friend, mostly just his partner. I wouldn't maybe say that they're really friends yet. But he is one of the people that Gavin has chosen to stick around and be his partner, despite most people not sticking around that time. So there is some sort of fondness that Gavin does see in Nines, even at this point. But mostly, I think that Gavin does have a little bit of empathy. He remembers what it was like to be a rookie, as he's about to explain. And I think that if there's an experience that somebody else is having, that he understands how that feels. Even if he doesn't like that person a whole lot, I think it's hard not to feel that kind of empathy and try to project his own past and his own feelings about certain things onto that person in that situation. So that's basically what's happening here. Here we have the break room fight. So RK-900 is sitting in the break room alone with his badge. He wants to be alone. No one can relate to what he's feeling. Should he even be a cop? Because he's really starting to wonder if he was made to be the deviant hunter, if he was made with this violent programming, should he even be in this position? Gavin wants to check on him under the pretense of getting coffee. Now, if you've read Irrevocably Linked, which is this script, this story, from Gavin's point of view, you'll see a lot of these things come up in Irrevocably Linked, because this scene is explained from Gavin's point of view, and there's going to be a lot of parallels here where you get to see inside Gavin's head in that short story, and so some of this will be familiar. Gavin wants to ask permission before diving into hard topics. He doesn't want to just spit it out like, I know something's wrong with you. He does want to kind of ease into it and do it politely. Nines is kind of clueless, though. He genuinely believes that Gavin just wants to talk about the case. He's not picking up on the signals that Gavin is dropping, that Gavin wants to talk about something a little bit more subtle and a little bit more emotional. But Gavin can only take so much of this before he eventually just gets to the point. But Nines doesn't want to have this conversation. He uses Gavin's first name as a way to sound more sincere that he is fine. Gavin interprets this in Irrevocably Linked as a power flex. But what Nines is really trying to do here is just appeal to his humanity, and appeal to his humanity through his first name. Gavin's getting a little irritated at being blown off. He resorts to evidence now. Needs to know that Nines is not cold and dead inside, that what he saw at the crime scene was a real reaction to trauma. Because I think at this point, Gavin has accepted that, all right, androids are deviant, androids are alive, but now I want them to prove it. Now I want, if that's the truth, I need them to act like that. I need them to be consistent about it. I need to know that this android following me around and calling himself my partner is really a person and does feel things. And it makes me uncomfortable as, a human, as Gavin, to see him shut down and go back into machine mode, because Gavin does get uncomfortable with the idea of non-deviant androids, of androids who don't claim to feel anything. It's kind of the opposite of The Bridge, and in fact, the writing of this scene was very much inspired by Hank and Connor's chapter The Bridge in the original game. It's just the inverse. Instead of Hank trying to prove that Connor is not deviant, Gavin is trying to prove that Nines is. Nines rises from his seat, and his slight height advantage becomes rather towering because he's trying to intimidate Gavin with his size and with his strength. He's offended that Gavin would be so personally hostile and throws it back at him. Now, Gavin doesn't have the greatest impulse control over the things that he says, and everything else in the scene is pretty much just unmitigated word vomit. But he's bearing his soul in an effort to get Nines to understand why he is so affected by how Nines is processing trauma. He wants Nines to understand that Nines can talk to him, but by this point, it is probably a lost cause. He says that when he was at a crime scene for the first time, saw a dead body, he puked his guts out on the side of a crime scene. That this is the memory in his own past that he's projecting upon Nines in that empathy that he has. That sort of misplaced, messy empathy, but he's got it. Nines is furious that Gavin would suggest that he isn't a person, and if personhood is what Reed wants, he'll point out all the vicious flaws that apparently make Gavin human. And so Nines just lists a bunch of insults, and now Gavin's just defensive and reactionary, and the truth bursts forth when RK-900 admits that he was programmed to destroy his species, that's really what this is all about. It's not about seeing a dead android. It's not about gore. It's not about feeling sorry for somebody who looks like him. It's about the fact that it is a reminder of what he was programmed to do, and had he not been saved by Marcus, he could have done that to somebody without being able to control himself. This is why Nines doesn't want to talk about it, because he can't possibly get Gavin to understand that. It's not something Gavin can relate to. And it's definitely not the reason that Gavin thought that he was so bothered by the crime scene. So Gavin was actually kind of off base as well, and assuming that Nines was upset about something different than what he was actually upset about. At this point, Gavin is terrified of his partner deflecting, and he's getting out of there. If adrenaline is fight or flight, this is flight. So he exits the room. Then we have this conversation between Chris and Nines outside of the police station. Nines is already regretting the things that he said to Gavin. He knows that they just weren't understanding each other. They weren't communicating properly. Things were said that neither one of them are proud of, and now he's stuck outside contemplating what Gavin meant by the fact that he's always wearing this jacket, because he's holding his jacket and the broken pieces of his badge in his hands. Chris wants to check on him because he's already checked on Gavin, and as we know in Irrevocably Linked, Tina also checks on Gavin while Chris is out here with Nines. Nines is ashamed, especially because Chris knows the fight that they had, that it was overheard, and he's kind of embarrassed to have brought that into the workplace, and he feels so ashamed that Chris feels dragged into this. Chris tries to make light of the situation. They've all been there before. He wants Nines to not feel unusual. So he wants Nines to know that the fight was Gavin's fault as well, not his own. Gavin, he knows Gavin to be prickly. He knows Gavin to be temperamental. So he doesn't think that Nines probably started that, because in the 3 months that he's known Nines to be pretty mild-mannered. He does not think 3 months is a long time, though. Nines doesn't. And he's confused why Chris is impressed. But Chris knows that isn't a long time. That's his point. They've been his partner for 3 months. It isn't a long time, but the larger point, of course, is that for Gavin it is. And it really says something about Gavin that 3 months is a long time. Nines is searching for advice, and Chris tells RK900 this story about Marcus in order to teach him about the parable of forgiveness. That people fuck up sometimes, and you have to choose to forgive them. It's a part of being human. Now, sometimes, I'll say, forgiveness is not the greatest choice. I think we as a society, we fetishize forgiveness a little bit, especially we put that on victims, that they won't be whole again or okay again until they forgive. And sometimes people don't deserve to be forgiven, especially if they're not sorry for what they did. But I think in this case, which was more of a misunderstanding and just an argument, they should talk about it. And, if Gavin still, or Nines still stands by what they said, and, they're still hostile to each other, maybe they wouldn't forgive each other. But I think Chris knows that it's not that case, that really they just need to talk to each other more calmly and come to an understanding, because if they were actually honest with each other, they probably would actually understand where the other people are coming from. So Nines goes to Gavin's apartment and brings him food. He leads with politeness to show Gavin how serious he is. He wants to get off on a good foot. Gavin is not ready to be nice quite yet, but more specifically, he's not ready to let his guard down. He's kind of hiding behind the door a little bit. Nines thinks that referencing Tina will relax Gavin, and it works. He loosens up at the reminder of his friend, and he's not turning Nines away yet. He wants to see where this goes. Nines is forced to get to the point. He doesn't want to fight, so he doesn't put on any sarcasm, any snark. He is as open and raw as Gavin wanted him to be before, and so maybe this will earn Gavin's trust back. Nines learns that the more honest and vulnerable you are with somebody, the more they may trust you, the more they may think that you're being honest. So Gavin admits that sure as hell beats ramen and invites him in. He remembers the conversation he had with Chris off screen, and he wants to fix things with Nines. Gavin has brought a cat to RK900 to help him feel more at home. This is just one of those things that Gavin does that is very warm, but he's not going to maybe hope that he's noticed doing it, because he wants people to not read into things too much. He kind of speaks through other objects, other gifts, other people, to try to get people to understand that he means well, because he's not comfortable being vulnerable and doing that himself yet. Nines wants to be honest, but he's also afraid of how Gavin will see him once he admits the truth. That's something we kind of haven't unpacked yet here in this script. So why doesn't Nines, up to this point, just admit that he didn't want to see his own potential personality in the death of that android, that he doesn't want to see the old Deviant Hunter programming and be reminded of that? Why couldn't he just tell Gavin that? And the truth is, he's afraid of how Gavin will see him. He knows that Gavin already doesn't like people. He kind of thinks that Gavin especially doesn't like androids. The jury is still kind of out for him on whether or not Gavin has a specific prejudice against androids or not. We can kind of argue about whether he does or not. not. But the point is that Gavin and him still have a kind of a rocky relationship, and the last thing he wants to do is scare Gavin off. He doesn't want Gavin to think that one day he could just snap and revert back to his base programming and go on a rampage or something. He wants Gavin to feel safe around him, and so that's why he hasn't up to this point talked about his fears of who he is, and also the mystery inside himself of what he should be now that he doesn't want to be his base programming anymore. Gavin wants Nines to know that there's nothing inside of Nines worse than anything he has seen before. Nines isn't gonna scare him. And more to the point, Gavin doesn't think there's anything inside Nines that's worse than anything inside Gavin. So Nines decides to spill his true trauma to Gavin, hoping that Gavin may understand. Gavin is not sure why Nines has such a complex over this. It's a simple concept. He wants Nines to understand that what he's feeling isn't unique in the slightest. This idea of not knowing who you are, or not wanting to be the person that you were raised to be, not wanting to be the person that your DNA says that you should be. This is something that every person goes through. Every person goes from, certain genetic things that, they might be predisposed to, that they're trying to escape. They have certain things that they were raised with, certain conditions or beliefs or behaviors that they're trying to unlearn or trying to move away from. We all look at our parents, and for some of us, we wonder whether or not we want to become them, and we get scared of becoming them, depending upon the circumstances. And this is all stuff Gavin is very familiar with on a personal level, but also something he's seen a lot in his role as a police officer for so long. So Gavin actually almost has to laugh at this being Nines' struggle, that this was something that Nines felt like he couldn't share because this is such a human experience. And it reassures Gavin that the person who is his partner actually is a fully thinking, feeling, autonomous person inside of the body of Nines. But Nines is still having an existential crisis. He's trying to make Gavin understand that he isn't like other deviants, and why. He was woken up by Marcus. He didn't choose to go deviant. So how does that change what his deviancy is? But Gavin doesn't see this as a bad thing. He, again, shares a little bit of personal experience so he can connect to Nines and make him understand that the mystery and the self-discovery process is just something normal about being a person. And Gavin, or Nines, is an adult-shaped android, but at the end of the day, he's kind of going through a adolescence in a sense, because he started with this blank slate. They go back to Snark when they finally feel like they're on the same footing as before, and they can go back to the way that they were before. This is Nines' way of showing Gavin that he feels better now, and he feels like they can get back to normal. And Gavin accepts this olive branch of sass and tells Nines his final lesson of humanity. You've just gotta live a little. And Gavin wants Nines to forgive him too for prying and being presumptuous. And he tacks on that nickname as a token of affection, kind of just slips out, and irrevocably linked to explain that Nines is kind of something he was already calling RK900 in his head, but never wanted to actually say it aloud because he never wanted to give him a name because he felt like that was presumptuous. But Nines wants to get across to Gavin that he wants that to be his name without making it weird, without being like, oh, you just named me, like, oh, I'll take that name you gave me. But he does like the name Nines and decides to keep it from that point on. And of course, Gavin wants him to keep that name too, but doesn't want him to get mushy about it. Nines knows that if they keep going like this, the moment will be lost, so he halts the train in place. Nines will be his name. He realizes he's probably overstayed his welcome and no longer has anything to talk about. He offers to leave to be polite. Gavin is frankly lonely and enjoys Nines' company. He doesn't want him to leave just yet, but he wants to frame that in a way where he doesn't come off as needy. So he rises, he kind of stammers, he wants Nines to stay. He doesn't want to be alone again now that he's finally made a connection with another person. No matter how small, no matter how new it is, he wants to hold on to that, but he doesn't want to seem clingy. He doesn't want to seem out of character in the sense of, oh, like now I'm going to be friendly. Like I have to uphold my reputation as as a jerk, right? So he kind of stumbles over it and completely botches it. Nines has no idea that, you know, Gavin is being awkward. He's oblivious to Gavin's intent. He's like, oh, well, yeah, I'll just watch a movie in my brain. And Gavin's like, all right, no, like let's watch iRobot. Let's peace offering. You know, movies are really neutral. Let's and I'm also going to choose a movie specifically that is a joke about you being an android, because I have to again remind you that I'm not mushy. I'm still a little bit of a jerk. So he settles it himself, and they end up going in and watching iRobot. Nines realizes he can be there for Gavin as the friend Gavin needs, and accepts this new mission with contentedness. You know, in Irrevocably Linked, in Detroit Evolution as well, we talk about how Nines figures out what he wanted. And at the end of the day, all he wanted was to be able to be there for Gavin, and to be able to be a good partner for Gavin. That's eventually what he settles upon as his mission. And this was just the start of that. So you can see Detroit Awakening if you're curious. It is linked in the description if you're watching on YouTube later. This breaks down all the things that happen in that film. And if you're curious about this Irrevocably Linked thing that I'm talking about, that's also going to be in the description. That is a short story that follows Detroit Evolution. It canonizes the fact that Detroit Awakening, this script, actually took place on Valentine's Day in the middle of February. And it's kind of a retrospective of this story from Gavin's point of view, and some of the things that happened from a different angle, and a retrospective after the fact, once they're already together, about the events of Detroit Awakening. So I hope you've enjoyed this director's breakdown. The 2-year anniversary of Detroit Awakening is on March 27th, so I'm sure I'll be tweeting about that and everything when that happens. And as always, stay great, hydrate, and have a happy time zone.